Everybody, it's Wardy here, and we're back at it with night 2 of MLB Winter Meetings and our special, not Big Mets Updates edition, but we're going to label this Mets Free Agent Frenzy edition, because even though it's essentially the same thing, we came out with a video earlier today that was labeled that, so we have to mix things up a bit. We're covering all the latest in Mets land, all the news, all the rumors, from Roki Sasaki there that we've seen plenty of today, as he's officially hitting the States as of today per his agent, the same agent that is shared with, yes, New York Metropolitan Kodai Senga. We're going to highlight all the key latest there on Roki Sasaki. Juan Soto details that further came out today as pending his physical. We await the official announcement. Hopefully that'll come out sometime or the next day or so. David Stearns spoke to the media plenty and will continue to do so, and he even denied going on to an MLB Network interview, and there was good reason for that. What does that mean? What is the next move for the Mets for either their rotation, their bullpen, or potentially their offense? That is what we're going to highlight in tonight's show. All the latest, as well as touching on other players, even if they're not reportedly connected, but answering your comments, questions, and concerns. Because listen, Mets fans, you're not dreaming. This is reality. Juan Soto is on your team for hopefully the next 15 years, the remainder of his career, and the Mets are far from done adding players. David Stearns had that look in his face, a little bit of a smirk that you could tell from his interviews today. He's feeling good where the Mets are at, and they know they're just getting started this offseason. So thank you guys so much for smashing that like and subscribe button. I greatly appreciate that as we follow on and break down all the key details, all the news, all the rumors regarding our beloved Mets. Thank you so much, everybody. And before I do a roll call like I typically do, okay, everyone's saying Heyman. Uh-oh, what just happened? Okay, there we go. What does this mean? What does this mean? Jonathan Loaisiga is going to be a New York Met, inevitably. That is what that means. So let's just hop right to this, everybody. John Heyman is saying what initially came out yesterday from reports. Initially, I saw from Mike Mayer, Mets Rise, with one of the first reports, and I shout out you, Mike. Does a great job with Mets Rise. I will always shout them out for free. They do a great job. Mets and Yankees are in the mix for Jonathan Loaisiga. Others in too, not imminent at the moment. We talked about Loaisiga not only last night, but also in our video that came out earlier today, so check that out if you guys haven't already, because initially Mike DePortez or Mike Rodriguez, one of those, I believe, Dominican reporters, he came out with a report there that apparently the Mets are signing Loaisiga to a 3-year, $27 million deal. Now, that is a complete bogus report in the sense of the contract. I don't see a world where Loaisiga gets 3 years by the Mets, let alone at that value for a guy that, even as solid and as good as he is, he has fluctuated quite a bit in his innings over the past number of years outside of his breakout season, in which he pitched a boatload there in the 2021 season for the Yanks. So Loaisiga, we have highlighted plenty on the channel, and we will continue to do exactly that. He would be a really nice fit for this Mets bullpen. Another clear bounce back candidate, similar in Jordan Romano there, who was just picked up on a 1-year deal by the Phillies yesterday, the longtime closer of the Toronto Blue Jays of no more. Thanks to ailments and inconsistencies last year, the Blue Jays decided to part ways with him. He looks for a nice new change of scenery there in Philly. And for Loaisiga, who throws absolute gas, that sinker that he utilizes north of 70% of the time is in his arsenal, again, plays up big time. And with that infield that the Mets have as well, if he's going to induce some ground balls and get some strong strikeouts, you're going to be working beautifully there for the next number of years, with Francisco Lindor still up the middle doing it greatly, and whoever we're going to have there at second base. In the case of the velocity as well, as we highlighted, Loaisiga is a guy that I really like to potentially tap into more on his fastball. That's something that's been in his back pocket all throughout his career, and I just think for how much velocity you have there, and working with Desi Driscoll again, who was the Yankees assistant pitching coach the past couple years, in which he worked one-on-one there with Jonathan Loaisiga, so that's where the Mets already have an advantage over him going to another team not named the Yankees. So if he doesn't return to the Yanks, I feel like him coming to the Mets is almost inevitable, just like Luis Severino, and then working with his pitch shape, fine-tuning his arsenal. And speaking of another former Yankee reliever now turned Mets starter in Clay Holmes, we're going to get into further remarks from David Stearns today, highlighting the importance of Clay Holmes as a starter, as that is currently viewed by David Stearns and co. So everybody, we're going to highlight everything in a second. We're going to get to all your comments, questions, and concerns as much as we can throughout the live show. Shout out to our amazing sponsor, America's #1 sportsbook, BetUS, but a little bit on them later in the show, everybody. But I did just want to show all you guys the following real quick. I think you'll appreciate it. So I had a bit of an issue yesterday. I went out and tried to make sure that I could land the Juan Soto newspaper. that officially came out. And unfortunately, where I reside in PA, for whatever reason, they still had the outdated versions of the newspapers. And today, they didn't even have the updated versions. They just had today's newspaper. So thankfully, my buddy Richie Malora, who covers the Jets and the Knicks, you guys know him at Knicks Media and Jets Media. I work with him at Knicks Media, where I cover the Knicks on the side every now and then, and we'll be doing that more actively once things have really died down in the offseason for the Mets over this next month. So be on the lookout on Knicks Media. But he went out of his way to get me a couple newspapers, so they will be on my wall eventually. But in the meantime, right now, we did get the new Juan Soto newspaper that came out today that you guys can see. Catch 22 there. Absolute thing of beauty with Francisco Lindor beside him, myself and Steve Cohen in the middle. I just had to share this because it feels like yesterday when Steve Cohen first became Mets owner, and I not only framed that, of course, there of Francisco Lindor, but the frames have changed over the years. I used to have Max Scherzer up here. I had the Javi Baez trade up here. I'm trying to think. We had Justin Verlander up here, obviously. We haven't done it for every move, but moves of significance, and no more significant and no more great than what we have now in the coveted Juan Soto. I'm going to go on a limb and say that Juan Soto will be in the background for the entire future, the foreseeable future, the ever-going future here on the platform. I honestly don't think there's ever going to be a time where that changes, but just want to show you it. Want to show a little bit more of the setup too, because I don't get a chance to. Murray, let me guess, did we sign him? I bet we sign him. That's my guess. Jonathan Loaisiga, we officially signed? Oh, never mind. Nathan Eovaldi goes back to the Texas Rangers. Okay. Thank you guys for the heads up. I appreciate that, Harrison. Harrison spamming it like a madman. I would have loved Nathan Eovaldi. I really would have loved Nathan Eovaldi for this rotation. He's one of my favorite options in the free agent market, not named a Sean Manaea Simone Southpaw reunion, and also not named there in someone like Walker Buehler. But listen, Nathan Eovaldi, he's 34 years of age. He goes back to the Texas Rangers, which I'm sure he's very comfortable there. He was a former Boston Red Sox World Series champ there after being traded from the Yankees that same season in 2018. The guy's an absolute bulldog when he's right. I love the K to walk ratio. He knows what it takes to win in big markets, especially. Nathan Eovaldi, if there was a greater chance to land him, I would have loved that. But there are still more than enough pitching options out there for what I think we will be comfortable with now for the Mets, where I'm not at all bothered by him going there. Unfortunate, but Nathan Eovaldi returns to the Texas Rangers, just like how we saw some other key things today that I like to highlight before we get into all the latest on the Mets news front. We'll get into that in a second. But yeah, Max Fried, folks, you see right there, he's a New York Yankee. He signs with the Yankees at roughly $220 million over the course of 8 years. So after losing out on Juan Soto, the Yankees decide to pivot this time into Max Fried. Corbin Burns will likely not now land with the New York Yankees. He is a big coveted piece out there in the free agent market that I do not foresee the Mets to land at all, nor should you expect the Mets to land him either. The Mets are going to be looking for shorter term options and better trade options as well, like Garrett Crochet, who they're actively talking to and negotiating with as we speak, according to what we've heard based on recent reports. So what we see there, everybody, is very exciting. We got ourselves Max Fried there leaving the NL East. So even though I never want to see the Yankees get an upgrade anywhere, I'm certainly not complaining by Max Fried inevitably leaving the Atlanta Braves. The only thing that I had wrong is I firmly thought that Max Fried would land with the Dodgers, but after Blake Snell landed with the Dodgers, that in fact became far from a reality. The Yankees heavily pursued Max Fried here, and now they get one of the best southpaws in Major League Baseball to pair with Garrett Cole and frontline their rotation. But that was the big move there for the Yankees. And then we all saw with the Toronto Blue Jays today, folks. They acquire Andres Gimenez, further proving why it was a slam dunk win of a trade for the New York Mets with Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco. Andres Gimenez, who has been a contact king and going gap to gap when he's right, a fantastic player, really, a multi-tool player with his great defense, great speed on the bags. But Andres Gimenez, who honestly has a really bad-looking contract, is unbelievably backloaded that Cleveland didn't have to worry about at all, and now it's all dumped there to the Toronto Blue Jays for a number of years when Andres Gimenez and his game, unless he bulks up, is honestly likely, in my opinion, to regress. I think it's going to get worse before it can potentially get better, unfortunately for Andres, and now that's another trade where the Toronto Blue Jays are trying to be creative. They know that's hard to land key free agents, so they have to go through the trade market. But how is this going to work for them as they head into 2025? We'll find out the rest of the inevitable moves that they will find themselves making. But those are all the latest big moves that we heard about, everybody. So before we touch on all the latest key remarks there that we've seen from the likes of not only Andy Martino, but certainly and more importantly by a wide margin and David Stearns, let's highlight again briefly what we did in our video earlier today that had everything to do with the Mets situation with Juan Soto.
not given the opportunity to match. The Yankees were not, just to clarify, the Yankees were not given the opportunity to match at the end. They certainly could have continued to bid. They stopped at $760 million for 16 years. Outstanding bid, outstanding effort. Not going to rip them for it. In the end, the bids were pretty close. So I don't think he had any great preference for the Yankees. I know that with a day or two to go, the Yankees were very confident, or at least fairly confident. As confident as you can be when there are 5 teams bidding hot and heavy for a player. The Mets, as I wrote today in the New York Post, were not at all confident. To talk to Steve Cohen about the situation. And again,
so that's all I got to mention there from John Heyman. He just reaffirms that the Yankees were not given an opportunity to match the Mets offer, and that wasn't because it wasn't about the Yankees being able to go farther. Like, it's not that the Soto bidding that Juan was necessarily telling them to stop, but rather, even if the Yankees continued, they were under the belief that Juan Soto was going to be landing with the Mets. So clearly Juan wanted to be here, which is a very exciting thing. The Mets still had obviously top dollar, and I think the Yankees knew, obviously, and Steinbrenner certainly knew this, that the Yankees matched and say went to north of $800 million. You think Steve Cohen's going to stop there? He's like, no. All right, then we're going to go 830, 850. What is it going to take? He's not going to stop until he gets his guy, and that held true there, and that's very exciting stuff. And furthermore, we heard as well that we reiterated yesterday, so check that out, everybody, if you haven't seen it already, but just some of the hospitality factors and the family, the impact that Juan Soto emphasized, and maybe some mistreatment with the Yankees, and how the Mets had a great point of emphasis with both Alex and Steve Cohen throughout their meetings, including a last-minute meeting there at Steve Cohen's home in Boca there that we see in Florida right around Friday night. And funny enough, he joked with Juan Soto and said, I'm going to run out of houses, to bring you to, essentially, after bringing him to the Beverly Hills mansion for round 1 of meetings. But these meetings further proved the importance of Steve and Alex's ability to not only get Juan Soto to want to come here, but also to understand that we are a family and we're going to treat you as such. So the Yankees, who are notorious for repping and really trying to exacerbate the fact that they are who they are. They have the 27 rings. They have the prestige. They are the most historic franchise in baseball history. And they want to shove that down your goal, and they expect you to look up to them knowing that they are the Yankees. So in the case of Hal Steinbrenner being asked essentially by Juan Soto to get his own suite for his family, Hal did not present the opportunity at all because he figured, I didn't do it for Jeter. I didn't do it there for Judge. Why am I going to do it for you? Even though, you're giving him far and away more money than you've ever given any player, or anyone's given to any player in North American sports history. I'm not exactly sure how you're going to be stubborn about a sweep, but not stubborn about spending $760 million. But this is what happens when you're a thick-headed owner and you still decide to prioritize the Yankee way, having to do it in this manner, because that's what history has shown us, and we're not going to break from history, even if it means we lose out on said players. So yes, did the dollar amount be the clear X factor in the Mets bringing in Juan Soto? Absolutely. But what the Mets also did was they rolled out the red carpet to Juan and his family, said, we're going to give you without hesitation a suite for your entire family, for your entire tenure here, and we're going to give you every little thing that you are looking for and desire. Again, not that they're completely kissing his ass to the point of wiping it for him, but they're going out of their way to make sure that he gets, again, as best treatment as possible and as comfortable treatment as possible. Steve Cohen approached him in a manner that Hal simply never could, and that's not because of Hal's lack of interest in Juan Soto to return, but more so in Hal's inability to have that personal one-on-one approach from a fan perspective. Hal Steinbrenner came into this through his father naturally. There was no way to avoid it, really. In the case here of Steve Cohen, he had all the reasons to avoid spending over $3 billion and a godforsaken New York Mets at the time, but he did it because he's a diehard fan and he wants to make this Mets team a perennial contender. In order to do that, you have to get a little bit out of the comfort zone, do things that no other owners have done, and Steve Cohen has done all that to such a high magnitude that we have now seen groundbreaking deals, and I have a great feeling that this is just the beginning of groundbreaking deals of this magnitude, of similar magnitudes in Queens for the foreseeable future. Ed Flood, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that $2 holla greatly. Peacefulness, thank you so much for the $5 holla. I'm so at peace right now. Oh my God, off GM. Happy to be here. We had to believe. Absolutely. Thank you so much for the donation. As always, my friend, I appreciate that. D-Mac with the $5 holla says, what's the ultimate King Cohen move at first base. Is not keep powder dry for a 1 year and sign Vlad, Soto's buddy, next year? Listen, I would love for the Mets to bring back Alonso, and I think that's the route and that is the realm that we are going at this current rate. But if for some reason the Mets do not bring back the Polar Bear and Pete Alonso to, I'd imagine, at least a 5+ year deal, then yes, go for a stopgap option this offseason, and then next offseason go scorched earth for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I don't even say to go out your way to try to trade for him, because if you wait a year, there's a great reality where you can land Vladdy. And in the case of the Mets, if they do sign Alonso long-term, they do not completely box themselves out and try to bring Vladdy Guerrero in, but they do make it a slightly more difficult in their chances to bring in Vladdy, and a lesser of a priority unless they really have a pitch in saying, hey, we'll keep Vientos at third, the defense will continue to get better, and we'll keep whoever plays better defense at first between Alonso and Vladdy Guerrero Jr. And then whoever isn't playing as good defensively, we'll put in the DH. They can rotate. Imagine Alonso, Vladdy Guerrero Jr. in the same lab together. That at that point, between Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Vladdy, Vientos, Alvarez when he's right, that lineup goes toe-to-toe with anyone in baseball, including the LA Dodgers. But let's not get ahead. Let's just try to figure out one guy and Alonso, and then worry about the future of a guy a year from now, that being, of course, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Jeff, thank you so much for the $1 haul. I appreciate that. Ed Flood, the Juan Soto pivot move makes me smile. You and I both, my friend. You and I both. James Alba, thank you so much for the donation. I know you're not a baseball trade values guy, but given these two trades, which would you prefer? Jet and McNeil for Castillo, or Jet, Gilbert, and Baez for Crochet? They both check out on their site. Thank you for asking. And yes, I'm not a big baseball trade values guy, because it's really hard to calculate certain deals based on contract value, and that is where I've seen lopsidedness. I will say they have been on the money with some trades in recent history, so it's not like it's a completely meaningless site. I typically don't go on my way for it. You're right, James. But let's answer this now. Jet and McNeil for Castillo, or Jet, Gilbert, Baez for Crochet? So when I look at this trade, and I look at the future of the Mets, I look at short and long term. Luis Castillo at $25 million for 3 years, $75 million total, which is exactly what Nathan Eovaldi got. Just for context, everybody, Nathan Eovaldi's on the same exact contract now between himself there and Luis Castillo for the next 3 years. So, yeah, I mean, I think we could all agree Luis Castillo still has better upside between the two, but Nathan Eovaldi has also proven to be that clear playoff performer, that bulldog every single season. He just really struggles with his health more at this point in his career in Eovaldi. But let's reel back in. If I had to pick between the two, I without hesitation do Jet, Gilbert, and Baez for Crochet. As much as it would pay me to lose Drew Gilbert most out of that personal group, as much as, again, I know there's a lot of optimism with Jesus Baez and how his exit velos look and a lot of his potential, raw potential. Jet Williams, there's a lot of potential too. I know you're giving up, I think, to a degree, far less in the prospect potential versus the Castillo deal, but Crochet and his upside is so significant that this could be a southpaw that dominates in your rotation for the next decade. That is why you go out your way for that trade. And listen, if that is all it takes for Garrett Crochet, then I am a kid in a candy shop continued with excitement and wanting everything and then some. Give me Garrett Crochet every single day of the week. Like, seriously, the guy is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. That pass and tweeted Garrett Crochet to the Mets, about to hit like crack. Guys, just to emphasize a little bit further on Garrett Crochet, and then we'll reel back in. We'll get into David Stearns' remarks among other things here shortly, everybody. But let's just look on the Garrett Crochet profiles per Baseball Savant. Just stupid. I mean, they're disgusting numbers. I mean, we're looking at a guy with around a 3-year rate this past season. Expected numbers, almost a full year rate lower. 98th percentile in fastball run value. 89th in pitching run value. I have Crochet stats here somewhere too. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull them up for you guys. That's Buehler. That's Sasaki. That's Crochet. There you go. Look, expected ERA in the 91st percentile, 89th percentile in expected batting average, and 92nd percentile in fastball velocity. He sits 97 with the fastball. He touches 100 to 101. His cutter's 95, but it tunnels so much that's really like 98. And then you have there the average exit velocity, 65th percentile, 93rd in chase percentage, 93rd in whip percentage, 98th in K percentage. The guy's K per 9 this year was disgusting. 87th in walk percentage, low in the barrel. When he gets barreled, he gets barreled hard. We have known that, but that's just because he's a hard thrower, or if he's handing his breaking ball there, which he has with the sweeper, the change, and the sink pieces. When you look at the breaking and off-speed pitches, extension, the 93rd percentile, he uses all of that 6'6", 250-pound frame, which is gorgeous. Garrett Crochet would be like... Guys, the way that I feel like don't even know how to fully grasp the news of Juan Soto yet is the way that I don't know how I'd be able to handle Garrett Crochet. This is a guy that I've been obsessed with since he was back in college. And now for the White Sox to have him in heavy trade talks and for the Mets to be a part of those heavy trade talks right now, and with them having multiple pieces to get this kind of trade done, again, Castillo, Crochet, either of the two, and I would come out absolutely electric as a fan. I think all you would feel the same. We did cover Eovaldi re-signing. That is correct. It was a fun little idea of Eovaldi coming to the Mets, and now I wish him well as he continues his tenure now into his late 30s with the Texas Rangers. And I'm honestly thinking for Texas, I'm curious how things are going to go for them in their future. They have some uncertainty there. Chris Scotty with a $2 holla, trade for DeGrom. I love Jake, but I don't see that happening for obvious reasons. TJ with a $2 holla. Love you, Chris. Hope you're doing well, my man. Heard Roki Sasaki very interested in the Mets. Yes, we highlighted that in a video earlier today. We're going to get into those details here shortly. Let's see, 1200 knows the Pucky this offseason is a failure. So I have heard, 1200. So I have heard. Thank you for that donation as well. Guys, if you haven't already, please make sure to smash a like and subscribe button as your first chime in. It really does mean a lot. And now let's get into some key remarks from David Stearns. And let's start with the coveted, the one, the only, the Japanese phenom, Roki Sasaki.
Joel was talking about Sasaki. You acknowledged seeing him in Japan, so yes. I thought I might ask. He said he described him as somewhat quiet, and he doesn't necessarily love people who are verbose. Does that give you the verbosity of New York City give you any pause?
So I've not met him, so I can't comment on the personality or what he's like from a conversational perspective. What I can comment on is he's a really talented pitcher, and whoever gets him is going to have a very talented young pitcher going forward. We're certainly going to give it our best shot. Very difficult in these processes to truly understand what a player's preference is. This isn't a normal free agent recruitment process. So we're going to submit our presentations and our materials just like everyone else, and we'll wait for his camp's feedback.
You don't have a sense from Joel or anybody that he wouldn't want a big market because of what that comment says?
We have not gotten that feedback yet.
Given his timeline, do you almost have to just operate as if you assume you're not going to get him, and if you get him, it's a bonus?
Yes.
So that is how they're operating per David Stearns there. But that quote in general, what I can comment on, he's a really talented pitcher. We're certainly going to give it our best shot. David Stearns, again, he's got nothing to lose. He's taking off the gloves. He's getting dirty in there every single day because the Mets are in full World Series stage. Like, has that kicked in for all you guys yet? Like, I know it kicked in last year given the fact that we got 2 games shy of the World Series, but that was still in a year where the expectations were not initially, that after 11 games below 500. Has it really set in for you guys yet that we are like full going scorched earth in this one? Some other great wordplay, however you want to call, full bore, if you will. Not to be stupid about spending, but to be very open-minded, very strategic in all different avenues of acquiring players and making this team better for the foreseeable future. And now the Mets, in my opinion, have such an amazing opportunity to do exactly that because David is more than willing to trade away prospects that he didn't draft or acquire because he's not Billy Epler and he's not Zach Scott. And he certainly is a guy that had so much success in year one that Steve Cohen is allowing him to do pretty much whatever he wants. And speaking of Steve Cohen and that willingness to go out there and continuously spend in areas that they need is what's going to make this so enticing for the Mets for years to come as they continue in this win now stage. But again, we're locked and loaded. This is quite literally now a full-time, it's World Series or bust for the Mets. Like, it's such an exciting thing to say, but we're here. And yes, I know Nathan Eovaldi signed. He returned there to the Texas Rangers. Good for him. I wish him the best. Would have loved him in this rotation, but it's okay. Now let's get on to some other remarks here from David Stearns today.
He referred to Senga as almost
This is about Kodai Senga.
a rehab progression still. I'm just curious what your understanding of where he is at physically is.
Yeah, so he is a healthy player who's progressing through his offseason. He has not begun to throw yet, but that's not necessarily abnormal for Senga as he goes through his offseason. We still expect him to be a pitcher for us on opening day and be ready to go. And if that changes, if we get information that makes us question that, we'll certainly pass it along.
Yeah, so just normal routine there with Kodai Senga. The only reason why I'm bringing it up, though, is because people were asking, especially with Kodai Senga being brought up today a little bit with the Roki Sasaki connection, as they share the same agent. David Stearns discussed what goes into preparing a presentation for Roki Sasaki and was asked if Grimace is in the presentation.
Is the Grimace in the presentation?
That is a great question. I don't believe Grimace made. I can't believe I'm answering that question. I don't believe that Grimace made an appearance in the Roki Sasaki presentation.
Thank you, Mike. It's a copyright issue.
Yeah. If we don't get the player, we now know why. That's the...
See, look how much fun David's having. Like, if we don't get the player, now we know why. Alberto with the $5 holla. If we trade for Castillo, we lose Pete. Because Seattle's tried to dump salary to be able to acquire a bat, and they've been linked to Pete. Yeah, no, that's not happening. The Mets are not going to re-sign Alonso just to trade him for Luis Castillo when they can get Luis Castillo-esque talent still in the free agent market and also in the trade market elsewhere with higher upside and Garrett Crochet. Appreciate the donation, Alberto, but no, not a chance in hell the Mets would sign Alonso just for that to be the end result. David Stearns discusses the conversations that went behind discussing Clay Holmes as a starter.
Holmes now announced. How did the discussions develop in the interest of him as starter?
Yeah, so we first talked to them, I think it was when we were at the GM meetings, and we're talking about a variety of different things. Our team needs, our really belief in Clay as a pitcher, familiarity that Carlos Mendoza had with him, and BB Abbott, his agent, said to me, you know, he has long wanted a chance to go back to starting. Do you think that's possible? And I said, yeah, we think that's possible, and we're going to do a lot more work on it, and we did, and we had multiple discussions with Clay directly about it. Jeremy Hefner talked to Clay. We had our medical staff discuss with Clay what this would look like, and I think we all came away believing, you know, this is a real possibility, and we could get this player to a point where he's going to be a very good major league starter, and he was very motivated to do that. We were able to work out a deal.
And I love that earlier when David was asked about the Clay Holmes signing, now that's officially official, in which he has that option after the second year, so we'll see what happens. Naturally, I'm pretty sure it's a player option, which would mean that if he's performing well and he's exceeding his value, he may hit the free agent market unless he's really comfortable. Otherwise, if he's not performing to say his caliber and he doesn't really think he's going to get much more than what he's actively getting, and especially if it's only going to be a shorter-term deal, then he'll probably opt in for the third year, assuming that's a player option there. But in the case of David Stearns there, on the breakdown of being a starter, he's very confident in Clay Holmes as a starter. That is exactly what they're planning to do. He said as of now, he's slotted in the rotation. That's their expectation. And if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, then he's a very good reliever. And this is literally what he said, verbatim, pretty much.
Being a reliever for you, or is this, you're signing Clay Holmes, he's in your rotation?
He's in our rotation. Yeah, we believe he's a starter. If for some reason that doesn't work, we know he's an effective reliever, but he is coming here because he wants to start. We believe he's a starter, and he's going to get every opportunity to do that.
In your mind, is this...
Oh, and this is the breakdown on the contract from John Heyman earlier. So $13 million average annual value in year 1 and year 2 there for Clay Holmes. And then we see player option for 2027 at $12 million. Also, folks, let's get into a little clip here on having to do with Jonathan Loaisiga, Sean Manaea, Garrett Crochet, stuff like that here briefly that we're going to touch on. That comes from Andy Martino of SNY and SNY's latest winter meeting coverage as well. They've been doing a great job, and we've been following along with all of it, along with MLB-wide coverage and all respective reporting that we've seen across the land, especially The Athletic has been doing a very good job.
But back to the Mets here. Where are the Mets focusing their attention after the Juan Soto deal?
Definitely hearing about the Mets pitching sale. They're talking to Jonathan Loaisiga, the reliever. Probably be a multi-year deal for Loaisiga, whoever.
So the fact that he just said it's going to be a multi-year deal Mike Rodriguez was probably right in his report earlier, but I don't think he had the AAV right. If he gets it down at 27 mil total for AAV of, north of 10 a year for Loaisiga, I think that honestly feels like a decent overpay for him. For a guy, when you look at his track record, not that he isn't good, because he is, but I'm really curious to see what the Loaisiga contract's going to be. Feels inevitable that the Mets are going to get him, so I'm expecting us. Actually, I'm going to go out and say I fully expect the Mets to sign Jonathan Loaisiga, and if they don't sign him, I'll be pretty surprised, honestly.
Whoever gets them, they have competition there, so that's no sure thing. Optimism on a Sean Manaea reunion, that seems more possible than it did at the end of the season, so that's another thing. And then involved in trade talks for Garrett Crochet and probably a number of other starting pitchers who we haven't sniffed out yet. So David Stearns has more to do, obviously, in the lineup, in particular first base, where you hear Christian Walker as a possibility, if not Pete Alonso. But Loaisiga was a name I heard today, and Manaea's had some juice behind it all week here with the Mets.
And the Manaea traction that's picked up as well. It's been exciting to see, because like most of us, right, the Simone Southpaw back in this Mets rotation will be an absolute thing of beauty. And just to enlighten you guys on how good Sean Manaea was last season, again, he was absolutely nails. Expected numbers not as much in his favor, but again, this is a guy that really hones in on taking advantage of the defense around him, and the Mets have structured that beautifully, and his ability to have the high sinker there in the zone that's worked to so many quick outs. And Sean is just one of these guys that, again, not only the on-field product, but the off-field product, I think, means almost as much for Sean Manaea, right? A tremendous clubhouse personality, a guy that you could rally around, a guy that just felt like such an awesome big brother, a big friend to everybody, just like a big bear, like Alonso in a lot of ways that you want to give a big hug to. That is the type of aura that Sean Manaea gives off, especially when you think of in the clubhouse as well. Him and Luis Severino were like the main OMG sign guys, or you have Sean wearing, the pitcher's number, especially throughout postseason there, and whoever's starting that night, including Luis Severino there. So Manaea, again, the vibes, the connection. I think there are so many things working right last year. I think that will continue as long as the Mets are diligent with their pitching lab with Jeremy Hefner and Desi and everyone else in company. And Manaea, again, knows what it takes to win, understood how to perform in big games for the Mets this past season. And then if we can just take some of the pressure off of his shoulders by having Kodai Senga be the ace caliber starter that he certainly can be, and hopefully by also acquiring another pitcher along with him, because I think the biggest thing that I will be disappointed by, and I'm expecting it, is that the Mets are only going to sign one more starter when I would love for them to acquire two more starters. But I understand that by acquiring one more, they are probably at a satisfactory position. If they land Sean Manaea, then their current rotation would be the makeup of, and again, I'm not necessarily saying it's anything better on paper than how last year started, but look at how far the Mets got. So I'm sure that goes in hand with their thought process, as well as Brandon Sproat. But I will say, I really hope they land two more starters, and hopefully, God willing, Garrett Crochet trade is one of them that they're actively pursuing. But when you look at the rotation makeup of Kodai Senga number one, again, in no particular order, really, Kodai Senga number one, David Peterson number two, number three, we're going to go there with Frankie Montas, number four, we're going to go there with Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea number five, Paul Blackburn number six, Howard McGill number seven. Already right there, you have seven assumably capable starters, with the assumption that Clay Holmes adjusts, is stretched out, and becomes a formidable starter for this Mets rotation. Still, though, there is some uncertainty, and I think you can never have enough depth. The same way that the Dodgers, even though that they have a plethora of injury-riddled pitchers, when healthy, they can make up two entire rotations in Major League Baseball, basically. Like, they have, 8 just fantastic starters, like guys that will be able to play at any rotation in Major League Baseball for the most part outside the Mets. And yes, I'm absolutely getting greedy, because I want the Mets to have as much depth and as much quality as they can now in this win now stage. Because while Juan Soto is 26, Francisco Lindor isn't getting any younger. And when it comes to shortstops, we know the defense can only last so long at times, unless Lindor really is this anomaly and gets into his mid-30s and is still performing at an elite rate. But we know that for Lindor, the peak window is just a couple years before there is this certain decline. Not a drastic one with Lindor, but we're inevitably going to find that at some point in his career. And that is why you really need to hone in on what the Mets have right now. And what the Mets have right now, if they compare Lindor, bring back Alonso, which I think is important. You bring Mark Vientos in, which which he has been doing fantastic with. Francisco Lindor's in the realm of things, obviously. Juan Soto, that's a great unit. But we know that all great things don't last forever. So David Stearns and Steve Cohen need to be very cognizant of that and their offseason decisions. And I firmly believe that they are. That is why a lot of the pitchers that they're currently pursuing are guys that would be fantastic for this rotation. Sean Manaea return, no one's complaining, as long as we're not signing him to like a 4-5-year deal. And the case there of Garrett Crochet, 25-year-old dominant southpaw that could win the Cy Young for the Mets next season. Who's complaining? Even if you have to give up top draft picks, top prospects rather, you do that because none of these players are more than likely going to supersede how good Garrett Crochet is going to be throughout the entirety of his career and the important impact he has short and long term for the Mets. In the case of veteran Walker Buehler on the shorter term end of a deal, he has a lot of there's a lot of optimism there with that sweeper and that fastball ticking up that would play well in Citi Field big time. When you look at some other aspects of the free agent market too, Nick Pivetta, I like him quite a bit actually, but Nick Pivetta has a comp pick tied to him, which is why I don't expect the Mets to go out of their way to sign him, given the fact that I don't think he profiles good enough for the Mets to give up all the money, and then the comp pick that'll come along with him. Corbin Burns, I don't see happening, and you really shouldn't see it happening either, barring changes, obviously barring changes, but the Mets are going to be creative. Jesus Luzardo is a man that is actively in the trade market for the Miami Marlins. While the Mets haven't overly reportedly been connected to him at this point, that is something that we can inevitably expect probably sooner rather than later. Luzardo, I think, would be honestly a great get for the Mets, where the trade value aspect wouldn't be too pronounced in what you'd have to give up to acquire him. I think Luzardo in this Mets lab could quite literally be a dominant southpaw, and he's very young still too. So Luzardo's a guy I have a lot of high praise for. Again, really good, and I think you look at last year, injury-riddled season, Luzardo, that fastball's nasty. Love the off-speed and breaking pitches when he's right. I really think that is an arm that you can get at a lesser price, a lesser cost, obviously, of Garrett Crochet, and I think this lab can really help turn him out to being easily a top 2, if not at worst, top 3 starter in this Mets rotation. Pay full dollar amount for Jordan Montgomery. I don't hate the idea of acquiring Monty, but at the same time, I don't think the Mets need to prioritize that route at all. I really don't. I think there's more potential for Monty to not work out in Queens at this rate with what their other options are. I think there are sexier options not named Jordan Montgomery for the Mets, even though I do like Monty when he's right. I think a normal spring training, he'd be good to go back in the New York market where he spent plenty of years with the Yankees and even rekindling their relationship with Carlos Mendoza. I don't believe Desi was the assistant pitching coach during Monty's time there. However, I do think that he was in the Yankees organization throughout that tenure still at some point with Jordan Montgomery being there. So you would rekindle some more relationships along with Carlos Mendoza, but still in the case of Jordan Montgomery, with how things currently stand in that contract, I think the Mets can do elsewhere at the moment. Soto is not done reportedly with the physical yet. We're still waiting on that. Oh, ZS, thank you so much for the subscription. I appreciate that. Yes, guys, to our over 1,200 concurrent viewers, help us get to 500 plus likes at any point in the live show. That means that at less than half of you just have to hit that button right now. It means a lot if you enjoy the continued content. We should break down all the latest in Mets land and day 2 of MLB Winter Meetings hosted there in Texas, as well as subscribing to the platform if you haven't, if you enjoy the consistent Mets coverage, as we cover everything in season, off season, long. We got you here on the platform, and we're just 1,000 subs away, less than 1,000. I think we're like 900 away now, as we gained 100 over this past night with our last video and stream. So thank you guys for that. Is what you see there in 30K. That is the next big short-term goal. We've been trying to get a 30K for a long time now. It's insane. Feels like yesterday we hit 10K, then 20K, 30K, and we've been covering every single move since Steve Cohen has officially become owner. And it's been amazing to see the rise of Steve Cohen now as the big brother, the big dog, certainly the big man between himself and Hal now in New York. Very, very excited about everything that's happening with this future for the Mets. All right, guys, let's get Stearns is woken up. Don't you worry, Mothman. Don't you worry. Speaking of David Stearns, these are some further remarks that he shared earlier tonight there that we saw on Baseball Night in New York. Or Mets Hot Stove. I apologize.
Does it need to be whether it's trade or free? But how's the pace of the conversations you're having set yourself up for making a transaction potentially here, whether it's trade or free agency? And what I'm really asking is, can I have a martini, or does it need to be a Diet Coke, or will we be back on the air tonight? Like, do you feel like you're going to leave here with something else done?
I don't know.
Andy's saying if he can have a martini tonight or a Diet Coke is very, very on par with what I would expect Andy Martino's drink choices to be. It's not even that it's not funny. There's just something about it that you know sometimes when you just have a moment where you're like, you think that's way funnier than it actually is. I just had one of those. Charles, thank you for the $5 holla. Charles says, if you had to predict, what would you say the next big Mets move is, and do you think it happens at the winter meetings? I think the Mets next big move is rotation for Manaea or someone else there, potentially even Crochet if we really get lucky. But I think the Mets next move is Jonathan Loaisiga, and I do think it'll be happening over the next day.
We are having a lot of discussions. It seems like some are beginning to move forward, but it's really tough to tell. And I probably would, if you talked to me last night, I probably would have said more would have happened around the industry today than has happened to this point. We're beginning to get some news of some transactions happening here this evening. I would expect that to continue overnight. But in terms of whether we're going to pull something off between now and when we all fly out of here tomorrow night, really tough for me to tell.
So let's also clarify that even though that David has one more day there in the winter meetings, the Mets are not done. Like, I firmly believe that they're going to make a move as soon as tonight. And I honestly think it's going to come later on tonight when I'm not live. Like, I don't know. And I'm telling you this out of straight gut. This is no source relaying this information to me at all. I have a feeling the Mets are going to make a signing tonight, like, post 10:30, like 10:30 to 11:30 range. In that area, I think we're going to find out about Loaisiga. Like, that's what I feel like is inevitably going to happen. So I'm mentally preparing to do a video or a quick live stream on that. So be on the lookout should that inevitably happen. I could be completely wrong, obviously, but there's just so much going on. He's been in active negotiation on a lot of fronts today, and I'm curious how much of those negotiations go directly in hand with other teams being in limbo on their decisions and what he is waiting on versus what the free agent market is right now, and really basing it on those free agents and how much are they in a waiting game on other teams versus the trade market, as I just reiterated, waiting on those other teams because of, say, they're weighing different trade offers outside of the Mets in the case of Garrett Crochet or something like that. Polar Bear Pete Alonso, I would absolutely love to see return to the Mets, and I do think it'll happen, but I don't think it'll happen tonight. I will say this, though. I think we're not going to hear a lot of traction on the Alonso front. I think it'll just happen. Like, if the Mets bring back Alonso, I think it'll kind of be one of those things where it's like, bam, okay, he's back. Sweet. Awesome. I don't think it's going to be an elongated negotiation at all, similar to what we just dealt with there in Juan Soto.
You're in the process right now of rebuilding a rotation. You essentially had to do that from scratch this offseason. Roki Sasaki is a hot name, just posted. Yeah. I know you guys are in on him. Today, his agent, Joel Wolf, met the media and basically played out the process, and it seems like this is going to take a while with him. So how do you view that process internally, working at parallel tracks, having interest in him, but knowing that that decision won't come down the pike for quite a while?
Yeah, I think all 30 clubs are going to have interest in him, and frankly, we're all in the same boat. We don't know what he's going to decide, and so we have to play through our offseason as though we're not going to land him. I think that's the responsible way to do this. We have to build pitching depth. We have to set our rotation, work through our pitching staff as a whole, with the idea that we're probably not going to land him because all 30 clubs are trying to access this player. With that said, whenever he does pick a team and sign, there's still going to be some offseason left. I mean, we've seen over and over now that off seasons extend well into spring training. Sometimes they extend into mid-March. And so I think, well, if you get him or if you don't get him, there's still plenty of time to adjust and round out your team.
So one thing I really want to highlight about these remarks from David Stearns having to do with Roki Sasaki is that the Mets are currently in a position where, yes, they cannot operate like he is a potential certainty to land. They have to operate otherwise. The exciting aspect about this is, as we just reiterated, the Mets are under the impression that they're going to land one more starter this offseason. David Stearns was quoted today saying that it is not even deemed a necessity as it was once deemed with the current options. Like, they're comfortable now starting the year with their rotation if they have to, but they would still like more depth there. So, especially in the case of either Sean Manaea or in the case of their a Walker Buehler, what have you. We also have seen naturally the Garrett Crochet trade rumors, and regardless on what starter the Mets land, they will land a starter from now to January 15th. Roki Sasaki is not expected to make his decision and to be able to officially sign until we get closer to that time frame. So the Mets may very well have already landed a key starter, and then if you land Sasaki, that's a plus, right? So, and that's going to go for a lot of teams this offseason. So simply put, I think the best way to look at it is the Mets are at minimum landing one pitcher. We know that. But the only way I think they land two this offseason is if Roki Sasaki is the second, knowing how much of a unique circumstance it is, and knowing that this is less about money, even though the Mets can actually trade for bonus pool money to push their bonus pool dollars from around $7.58 million to $10+ million right now. They would have to decommit there to their top shortstop prospect in Elian Pena, who's committed to a $5 million signing bonus, if I'm not mistaken, once the IFA signing period begins on January 15th. If they decommit from him, they go all in on Roki Sasaki here, then bam, you have yourself whoever you acquired in the free agent trade market, then you pair him there with Roki Sasaki. Then you're looking at a potential rotation for the Mets as follows. Roki Sasaki, Kodai Senga. Let's say they don't land Garrett Crochet, even though I would love it to happen. Let's say they bring back Sean Manaea. So, Roki Sasaki, Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, so Roki Sasaki, Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, David Peterson, Frankie Montas is your 1 through 5. Clay Holmes is your number 6. Your number 7 is Paul Blackburn, and your number 8 is Tyler McGill. That is what we call quality pitching depth. And that is how the Mets can utilize the 6-man rotation brilliantly while stretching out Clay Holmes and also potentially having someone else as a piggyback should they wish to go down that route. They can certainly do that, especially in the case of Paul Blackburn, per se. That would give them an abundance of riches on the pitching end with injuries inevitably happening. There is no certainty as to how many innings Roki Sasaki can pitch as soon as this upcoming season, wherever he would land. And Roki, we have heard, at least, what the rumblings have been through his agent, among other things, is that one, he doesn't have a bias when it comes to West Coast, East Coast, or anything like that. His agent does believe that he'd be able to handle New York, and we'll get into that, even though he has had major media issues that we will highlight as well here shortly during his time in Japan, which again, we'll break down further. But Roki Sasaki has a chance to enter his tenure with the Mets as our clear ace, our number 1, to pair with Kodai Senga, in which Senga can really get him familiar and comfortable. He'd be able to maximize in endorsements in a way that he will not be able to at all with the Dodgers to the same magnitude, because the spotlight is so much more on Shohei Ohtani, on Yoshinobu Yamamoto, as fellow Japanese countrymen, just those players alone. Then you add in Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and everyone else in company. In the case of a team like the Yankees, who are really, on the outside looking in, and Sasaki, we'll see. But they're a team where, again, you'd be in the shadows of Judge, Cole, and now to an extent in Max Fried. In the case of the Mets, we love Kodai Senga, but Sasaki has far and away the most potential. He would come in, be able to dominate this as the frontlining leader in this rotation, be able to hammer endorsements greatly, and also be able to handle an environment that's going to continuously win, that's on the upswing, with an organization that's looking pretty savvy and pretty smart and pretty damn exciting after landing Juan Soto. So no, this does not guarantee anything when it comes to pardon me, in the case of Roki Sasaki in his future. But what it does do at minimum is tell us that, again, the Mets are an appealing destination for more than the dollar amount alone. That is massive to think about, and that's only going to continue to trend upward throughout the coming years for Steve Cohen, David Stearns, Carlos Mendoza, and everyone else involved. David Stearns was asked if the luxury tax thresholds play a factor for 2025. Yoshima, thank you for the donation. I know they have now fried rice. That's hilarious. In regards to Max Fried.
A couple of months ago, to year to year, not always be in the 300s payroll-wise, not be over that last luxury tax threshold. Is that number significant to you this year going into 2025?
I don't think we're looking at any specific number as a threshold. I think, as I've said before, anytime you pass any of the CBT thresholds, you have to do the analysis to understand what the cost is. And we're going to continue to do that. And at times it's probably going to make sense for us to push through, and at times it's not. And that's going to be true every single year. But I am confident this year and going forward that we are going to have plenty of resources to put good teams on the field.
That has to be so refreshing for the diehard fan growing up in David Stearns confidently saying, after spending multiple years leading the way for the penny-pinching Milwaukee Brewers, that, yeah, finances aren't an issue. We have an abundance of resources. We have an owner that is owning the Mets for a philanthropic reason and not for a return on investment reason. That alone is why David Stearns is acting giddy, as he should. I'm sure he was freaking the hell out when we signed Soto, and I cannot wait for him to talk publicly on Soto with that deal officially becoming official. That's just holy guacamole. I cannot wait for it to happen. I really can't. All right, folks, here we're going to hear also from, I believe, Josh Wolf, who is the, if not Josh, something Wolf, who is the agent currently of Roki Sasaki. And earlier, he stated how there could be a slight advantage for smaller market teams when it comes to Roki Sasaki as a better fit because of how poorly Roki handled the media in Japan. For context on this, everybody, Roki Sasaki was not supposed to leave the Nippon Pro Baseball League when he did. And he did it so prematurely to the extent where, you know, since a guy in like Shohei Ohtani, I mean, even to a much greater magnitude, because no one really leaves the MPB at just 22 years of age, turning 23 before we know it. And the Japanese media did not handle that well. They gave him a lot of flack, especially with how, you know, the culture in Japan is vastly different, obviously, than what we have here in the States, especially with baseball. There's a great respect there, but I think if that respect is broken and if they feel slighted, which there were a lot of rumblings as to how things went during the case of, for example, Trevor Bauer during his time when he was pitching, and I'm not exactly sure if it was the MPB or the KBO. I'm honestly blanking. But regardless, things were sour at the end of his tenure, color me shocked, because of how things went with really not abiding by traditions and just doing things in a way that would obviously offend their culture. And the case of Roki Sasaki, the offense is to be leaving his team prematurely to the point where his team doesn't even get a massive financial benefit, the way that the Dodgers certainly benefited the club who had Yoshinobu Yamamoto by giving him an over $50 million bonus straight there as part of the tax as he was posted by his team. If you prematurely post with a club the way that that has happened in Roki Sasaki, the team does not get nearly the same benefit as they would if he waited a couple more years and then it was posted then. So that is the reality of it. Okay, we got John Heyman. Someone's saying Heyman constantly. Hold on. Nothing new on Heyman. DMC, pump the brakes or else you're going to get the timeout, brother. Because it's one thing to spam Heyman, it's another thing to spam it when there's nothing new on John. But either way, we initially heard these remarks from Roki Sasaki's agent, which had fans initially thinking, okay, there's no chance he could play in New York, right? Well, this is a response in regards to exactly that.
A lot of players consider New York a totally different animal just because of all those things that are besides the media. I mean,
Right.
Do you have any sense of how you use that city?
He hasn't said anything negative about any particular city, and he actually hasn't said anything overly positive about it. We haven't had any detailed discussions about, particular cities yet. So
I don't believe you. The meme of Will Ferrell from Anchorman 1 where he's just like sitting in his chair, he's like, I don't believe you. That's exactly how I feel. Obviously, he's going to be as transparent as possible. Just like the Soto sweepstakes where you want everyone to feel like they have a shot is the same way how they're going to go about Roki Sasaki. They want everyone to show interest, and they want to weigh all those teams' options. But there is one thing that, as of now, the Mets have an advantage of to a degree. Not necessarily overly in the case of over the Dodgers and the Padres, but it is a factor to bear in mind that I would like to highlight with all of you. Before I do that, however, I would like to further share some clips from Joel Wolf, the agent there for Roki Sasaki and Kodai Senga.
I mean, I think that there's an argument to be made that a smaller mid-market team might be more beneficial for him as a soft landing. Might be. I'm not saying it will be, but I don't know how he's going to view it. It might be beneficial for him to be in a smaller market.
And that feels exactly like something you say, especially to make sure that literally everyone is getting involved. They want as many eyes on Roki Sasaki as possible, understandably so. But let me get back to the comment earlier that I want to highlight for you guys, and that had to do with Roki Sasaki in that article. Where did that article go? Here it is, or that piece rather, initially from Jim Bowden, former GM turned analyst on SNY. This was a video we did earlier today, but to further reiterate and highlight it, Roki Sasaki's agency is very high on Jeremy Hefner's ability to develop pitching per Jim Bowden. Sasaki is said to be valuing endorsement opportunities, winning, and pitching development as he decides where to play for his future per Bowden. So again, in the case of the Mets, yes, they don't have a lot of the things that the Dodgers have, but they are an increasingly appealing destination for teams, for players like Roki Sasaki and many others. So I think the Mets are going to give this their best shot, as David Stearns alluded to publicly today. They're at the winter meetings, and I also think that the Mets are far from done making moves, and we're going to see some moves as soon as tonight. I firmly believe we're getting at least one move tonight, if not tomorrow. And again, barring changes, it feels like it's Jonathan Waska, right? It does. He sounds like a professional that makes you fall asleep in class. Yeah, he really does, Jordan. I see the similarities there with how Joel was speaking, if that's who you're referring to. But folks, we touched on like literally everything now. I'm pretty sure we're caught up on everything. I'm pretty damn sure. We also did see, we talked about the secret meeting there, obviously, with Juan Soto. I also did see that Juan Soto may have to pay like a heavy CBA tax in order to get number 22 from the Mets, just because he'd have to pay for all of the current inventory of that number of what is currently, I believe, Brett Beatty, something along those lines. Very interesting. So yeah, not that it's going to bother Juan Soto, who's getting $120 million gross in his first year as a Met, with a $75 million signing bonus and then $51 million at minimum of average annual value. That's absolutely bananas. It really is. And again, I could be wrong on that regarding the jersey stuff, but I saw the New York Post came out with it themselves. So, and actually, I do want to find that right now on Soto. Let me see where, I'm trying to think where I saw that earlier today. I don't know. Either way, it's on the New York Post. You guys can check it out. But folks, Pete Alonso, that's another thing I want to talk to you guys about, because we've highlighted this a bit, and I'm excited to highlight it again. But Pete Alonso, what we know to this point is that the Mets and Alonso, there's mutual interest in rekindling that relationship. David Stearns is on record as of yesterday saying that, we like to bring Alonso back, or we love to bring Alonso back. And we have heard rumblings even with the Yankees, will they consider Alonso at first base? Yanks ain't signing Alonso. It's already been reported that Christian Walker is a more obvious pick between himself and Alonso that fits the needs of what the Yankees are looking for, what they plan to do. And listen, the Yankees have no problem spending over $200 million on another rotation piece. Let's see how they fill the multiple holes in their lineup that is aging oh so greatly outside of Aaron Judge. They got to figure out, obviously, the successes of Jason Dominguez, potentially in a breakout, what could be there in Spencer Jones if he makes his debut this season, among others. But a lot of uncertainty there for the Yankees and their 2025 season. Now, folks, one thing that I did want to show each and every one of you, and then we're going to break down more in Mets land. We're going to highlight individual players a bit more. We'll talk a bit about pros and cons of them on coming to Mets, and going directly in hand with answering your comments, questions, and concerns. So to all my replay viewers, if you guys want to get in on having your questions answered, because I know you guys comment hundreds of comments every single day, and sadly I can't get to nearly enough on the day-by-day because of the continued content coming out and everything, make sure you guys chime into the live streams as much as you possibly can. I try to keep them relatively similar in timing, as long as they're not breaking news. It's usually in the evening, anywhere from the 7:30 to 9+ p.m. range. Usually in that realm is when we'd be going live at any point, because we try to answer a lot of comments for you guys, and I'm going to be getting to them shortly. But one thing that I did want to highlight, because a couple days ago I told you guys in our stream that yes, I am going to eat only Dominican food for Juan Soto. I didn't get a chance to do it yesterday, but I got a chance to do it today. I was very excited. So there you go. I asked you guys on X, what's the go-to? What should I eat? And I got a bunch of stuff. Unfortunately, I wasn't able there to get the so coveted Dominican breakfast, but I will do that next time that I get a chance to have some DR food. So right now we got some absolutely gorgeous right up here panelle that we have with the skin on. We also have here, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is ox, and then we're gonna have the so good rice as always. It's banging, and then we got got Platanos, if I'm not mistaken. My favorite country club. Love the country club soda. I've never actually had the Moraine one, like the orange one, until now. That was the first. Before that, I only had the Frambuesa for all my fans out there that know the country club soda. That one's pretty good, the raspberry one, but this one's good as well. But I just want to show it because I'm a man of my word. I told you guys. Not that I wouldn't go out of my way to try DR food, but for me, the closest place to get good DR food is at least 20-25 minute drive. So we did the hike today, got it done, absolutely grubbed. It was chef's kiss. Can't ask for anything better. Literally can't. As someone who absolutely idolizes, a lot of different Spanish food, especially Puerto Rican food. I love Venezuelan cuisine that I've had a lot of recent. I'm trying to think as well. I like Cuban food too. I love it all. I really do. And as an Italian who loves my eats as much as someone who had a prosciutto, pesto, mozzarella sandwich today is the same way that I love also these eats as well from different cultures all the time. I love everything about New York and all the different cultures that brings as well separately, but that's neither here nor there. Now let's talk about Mets here, everybody, because there is something I want to show you as well. If you guys didn't see it earlier, there is the official Juan Soto newspaper on the wall. It's on the wall behind me, but it's kind of cut off from my frame. So there's it again, everybody. And then again, from these remarks from David Stearns earlier, the big question is, what is David Stearns cooking, right? Because when you look at David Stearns, you look at the remarks saying, we have a lot of discussions. It seems like some are beginning to move forward, but it's really tough to tell. And the fact that he was supposed to have a MLB Network interview today and he canceled on it tells me all I need to know, right? So the boys in the shop cooking big time right now. I think it's Jonathan Loaisiga, based on all the reporting, just because it just feels like common sense. But I want to know how you guys feel about it all. And again, thank you so much to everyone that's been shopping in live and a replay. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe on as we've been having fun tonight, folks. As now, I want to defer to each and every one of you and answer as many comments, questions, and concerns as I possibly can over the next 10, 15 minutes, guys. So whatever comments you guys got for me, whatever remarks you have, relay them. And to all my replay viewers, I may have cut the stream off by this point, because I don't know how much more I'm going to be long-winded on just doing a Q&A now. So thank you so much for watching. Let us know your key takeaways in the comments down below to all the latest in Mets land and night 2 of winter meetings. And rest assured, when more news, when more reports come out of significance, we will cover right away here on the platform, as we always do. Thank you guys so much for watching. Live viewers, let's continue the content. Let's answer your questions, comments, and concerns. My replay viewers, let's go Mets, baby. And yes, folks, we did the Wardy stare for the first time in a hot minute. If you guys remember the Wardy stare, which we absolutely love, how can you not love the Wardy stare? For context, that is, I simply do it so I do a visual timestamp when to go back into YouTube Studio and edit where I want to trim my live stream. And it's a silly thing, but we've been doing it for so long, and the OGs on the platform know. Mets are still in on Buehler. That is correct. And as of yesterday, Eddie Martino said that, the Mets' next move being Buehler, is definitely a possibility. Like, there's truth to that. I think pitching-wise right now, it's looking Loaisiga and potentially that Manaea reunion, but I would definitely love Walker Buehler for sure. Acuna, Ronnie Mauricio. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. I like them both, and I think that they both have potential to impact the Mets next season, but unfortunately for you and for some, at least one of them is getting traded this offseason. Breaking news. Wardy just broke some news. No, I didn't. It's common sense. One of the two is getting traded this offseason. If the Mets are really going to swing a trade of significance, if the Mets are really taking Garrett Crochet trade talk seriously, and they're really taking that kind of realm of trade talk seriously for controllable starting pitching, expect the Mets to trade at minimum one of their key infield prospects between Ronnie, Luis Angel Acuna, even though he's not a prospect, but still in that realm right now, in that quadruple A purgatory, and Brett Beatty, or obviously Jet Williams. One of those four is definitely, I think, going to be on the move, if not multiple. We got a crowd jam at second where we can trade in the Myers too. Absolutely, Mr. Delightful, 100%. Let's see. That's why Soto chose the Mets over the Yankees. We do have a better team. We have a better future. I 100% agree with that. Yankees made the dance last year by having to do, and not bare minimum, but, Royals and Guardians, come on. That is not to slight them, but that's still reality. They don't have the star power that it takes to get past those rounds. The way that the Astros have the star power, they were able to get farther. The way that, even to a certain degree there, you've seen what other teams like, I'm not going to say Seattle, I can't say them, but there's some other teams out there, the Astros, the Astros' demise was the Yankees being able to propel last year, unfortunately. That was not fun. Our guy Straight Talk with Jack Graham, great member, loves Manaea, love him too. Brennan says, hey, Wardy, which of the 3 choices would you choose? Sasaki, Manaea, Crochet. Okay. Or which of the 3? You only gave me 2 choices. Never mind. Sasaki and Manaea, Crochet, Manaea, or Sasaki and Crochet. Sasaki and Crochet every single day of the week. Love Sean Manaea, but Sean Manaea is not going to be pitching for the Mets more than 3 years from now. Sasaki and Crochet could dominate the Mets rotation for the next decade together collectively. Decade. It's insane. Still need to clean up hitter. Definitely don't think Vientos is a 4-hole hair. Your thoughts? Bring back Player Bear Pete Alonso. Those are my thoughts. Justin Vale, what do you think Pete Alonso contract will look like? Well, if he's in the 5-year range, I could see him being more in obviously the 135 to 145, 150 range. Obviously, he's going to want to push things to try to get to north of 175 to 200 on 6-7 years. But hopefully the Mets can try to land him at that 5-6 year range. Hopefully we don't got to go to 7 for Pete, because that's going to feel a bit too long term. Not that I'm concerned that if Steve has to eat the contract, but again, just another hurdle you're going to have to worry about then down the line. And Dominic, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. I'm glad I'm spot on tonight. I know I'm not spot on with everything every night, but I'm glad tonight we're doing good. Justin answered that contract question. Let's see here. Who do you part with first, Acuna or Mauricio? It's tough because Acuna looks so stellar right away. Mauricio has a lot of very attractive abilities as well. I don't really want to answer that question if I'm being honest, because I like what they both bring to the table. I do. Let's see here. And DMC, I suggest listening to Juan because he's laying the foot down. So that's all, DMC. It's okay, though. You're having fun. You're not being a big deal. It's okay. Nationals have 1 pick in the number 1 pick in the draft. Yep. And the Nationals are going to be a problem for the foreseeable future. But the problem for the Nationals is the reason why they're going to be a problem is because of the Juan Soto trade. And now they have to deal with Juan Soto in the division for the remainder of his career. So it's like tit for tat. You know, they benefited from it the same way that we benefit from it. Oh, try some Ecuadorian seafood. I will definitely put that on the list. 1,000%, Adele. Thank you so much for that suggestion. I appreciate that. I can't wait for a player to break the beard rule for the Yankees, even though I'm not a Yankee fan. Yeah, it's got to happen at some point, right? All traditions come to an end at some point. In the case of the Yankees, it's got to happen. It's got to happen. Do you think we bring back Iglesias and or Winker? Yes, I think we bring back at least one of them. Both of them I can't say in confidence. How you doing, Ed? Happy to have you in your Ed, Marcus. Ward, do you think Braves are going to be... I think the Braves are going to be very good, obviously. Braves are going to bounce back next year. They're going to get creative, though. Braves will get creative in the trade market, and they will make some signings that you weren't initially thinking of. But the Braves now have a tall task because the Mets are going to continue to do everything in their power to dominate next year. It's easy to write off the Braves after what happened last year at DMC. It's okay. I accept it. It's easy to write off the Braves when you think about, you know, not a deep dive of a thought, but you just initially think, oh, the Mets were good last year and the Braves weren't. But the context of why the Braves weren't good last year is important in a lot of ways and why they had their struggles. And it was all, unfortunately, health. As long as Ronald Acuna Jr. is healthy again, after that, another unfortunate tear. A bounce back year for Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Sean Murphy. These guys all feel like they're really going to dominate and get back to their offensive ways next season. And that's going to be a bloodbath in the NL East. It will, but it's going to be a bloodbath with Juan Soto hitting fucking nukes. Absolute nukes. And oh my God. Absolute nukes and truest. It's going to be stupid. I can't wait. I like Framber Valdez. I do. I think he's crafty. He knows what it takes to win. But I don't think the Mets are barking up that tree right now. And Spencer Strider's coming back, that we know. All those key pieces are coming back, right? Shane McClanahan, another Cy Young caliber starter, dominant southpaw that the Mets initially drafted, funny enough. He just went back to school and said no to the Mets, sadly, back in the day. He's back with the Tampa Bay Rays. A lot of electric arms last year went down so early due to injury, and now they're all coming back. So it's going to be exciting to hopefully see Major League Baseball. Let's limit some of these pitching injuries, God willing, even though I know they inevitably happen. Let's have ourselves an electric 2025. JBJ did elect free agency. Yeah, he was only on a 1-year deal. Rizzler approved Soto. Damn right he did. If you know, you know. I do like trading for Castillo. It's 3 years left, $25 million average annual value on $75 million total. Same exact contract that Nathan Eovaldi was just handed by the Texas Rangers. I like that contract a lot. The value gets better by the second. I would love for the Mets to take on Castillo in that contract. I would love it. Also, Castillo and the vibes. Castillo would bring fun vibes for sure. What's so good about Luzardo? Good question. There's a couple of things that are good about Jesus Luzardo, but I'll gladly highlight them for you because Luzardo is one of my favorite picks out there. Jesus Luzardo, everybody, you look at the baseline numbers, a flat 5-year ERA, a 4.5 expected ERA, 12 starts last year, dealt with ailment. That's the main reason for the subpar numbers. When you further look at the context of Jesus Luzardo and how good he is, you will too probably be on the hype train. Funny enough, Jesus Luzardo was initially traded from the Oakland Athletics around 2.5 years ago in return for Starling Marte when Marte was a Miami Marlin and was traded as a rental there to the Athletics, in which the A's didn't do anything with him. He stole a lot of bags that year, like 47. He was insane. But then after that, he signed with the Mets on that multi-year deal because he was never going back to Oakland. The case of Luzardo, as we look through his baseball savant numbers here in a second, guys, he is electric. When he's right, he is a young, dominant, controllable southpaw, only at 27 years of age. He's a free agent in 2 years from now, just like Garrett Crochet. For context, he's 2 years older than Garrett Crochet, and he costs a lot less than Garrett Crochet. These are the peripherals from 2024, but ignore them. Again, limited sample size due to injury-riddled year. This is 2023. Jesus Luzardo. 94th percentile in fastball run value, 90th percentile in fastball velocity there. Again, he sits at 96, 97, 98. He can touch 99. He's nasty. You can see him even get in the triple digits every once in a while. Chase, whiff, K percentage, all the elite categories. Gave up a hard barrel, did not give up much ground balls, and gave up a solid hard hit rate just below league average in 2022, where he really broke out. Jesus Luzardo there. You see the peripheral is actually very quite a bit low in the chase and average exit velocities there, and the walk percentages as well. He was getting hit pretty hard that season, but he was starting to show life in his velocity. And again, 120 strikeouts there in 100 innings with a 3.3 ERA in 2022. In 2023, north of 180 innings, over 200 strikeouts and a 3.58 ERA. Jesus Luzardo would be a fantastic middle-of-the-rotation option for this Mets team that you can pair with fellow southpaw and David Pearson, should you wish, as two really young, exciting southpaws in this rotation, and you go from there. I really like Jesus Luzardo. Again, he's not going to give you the magnitude of what Garrett Crochet is going to give you, but he's going to be lesser on the trade aspect, even in division there in the NL East, and what he's also going to give you is a very exciting piece for, again, the next couple years at minimum. Just give me 1 second, everybody. I'm double checking all my notes here to make sure that I don't miss anything. Post game. Yeah, you know the drill. You'll love to see that. All right, everybody. With that being said, that is about going to wrap up the live stream. I want to thank you all so much for watching. It really does mean a lot. As I mentioned, please be on the lookout tonight if breaking news does happen, because if Jonathan Loaisiga becomes a New York Met, we will be right here to cover it right away. I got pretty much everything set up for it as well, so I'm sorry, let me clarify. We will either go live for it, or I'll have a pre-recorded video out like as soon as humanly possible on Loaisiga, should it happen tonight or early tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that, folks. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your evening. It's still an early night here in the winter meeting, so I'd anticipate plenty more information to come out, potentially report-wise, as we get into the later hours. Be on the lookout for it all. I'm very excited to see what is next for the Mets this offseason, and we will be covering it all to a T, as we always do each and every day here on the platform. So until I see you in a hour from now, or tomorrow, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. And this is your buddy Wardy, signing out. Poppy Hector, thank you so much as well for your call the other day. Hope you enjoyed the tremendous basically platter I had of